My name is Erica, and I'll never forget the night that changed the course of my family dynamics forever. It was at my younger sister, Madison's, wedding. The ballroom was filled with elegance and the promise of a new beginning. But instead of a night filled with love and celebration, my mother turned it into a nightmare. With a glass of champagne in her hand and a perfect smile on her face, she decided to humiliate me in front of half the ballroom. "Look at you," she said, loud enough to draw the attention of nearby guests. 37 and still single. Will anyone ever choose you? A few nervous chuckles filled the air as people knew it was cruel but didn't want to be the first to object. Madison froze beside her new husband, Ryan, but did nothing to stop it. My father, sitting back in his chair, smirked and chipped in with, "Some people are alone for a reason." In that moment, something inside me snapped. But instead of crumbling under their words, I took a deep breath, set down my champagne glass, and stood up slowly. With a calm smile, I said, "I am already married. You did not deserve a seat at my wedding." The room fell silent. My mother's face turned pale, my father's smirk vanished, and Madison whispered my name in shock. My mother, obviously caught off guard, snapped, "What does that mean? Explain yourself right now." This was a long time coming. To understand why I said that, I have to take you back to my childhood. I grew up in a small, wealthy town near Miami. My parents, Richard and Victoria, were all about status and appearances. My mother, Victoria, was a prominent figure in the local social scene. She hosted charity events and knew every wealthy family in town. In her eyes, a family was only as good as its public image. My father, Richard, was a successful real estate broker. He was quieter, but his judgment was just as harsh. He would look at me with disappointment, as if I were a bad investment. Madison was the perfect daughter in my parents' eyes. At 29, she was a social media influencer, known for her glamorous lifestyle and perfect aesthetic. She planned high-end parties and had a knack for making everything look picture perfect. When she got engaged to Ryan, a man from an old money family, my parents were over the moon. They saw it as a validation of their parenting and a boost to the family's status. Then there was me. I was into cyber forensics, working with law enforcement agencies to solve high-profile cases. I had built a solid reputation in my field, but my parents saw it as a less than a glamorous job. They couldn't brag about it at social events like they could with Madison's lifestyle brand. When people asked about me, my mother would give a tight-lipped smile and say, "Erica is very career-focused." Then, in a hushed tone, she'd add, "We're still praying she finds someone." At family dinners, my father would ask when I planned to settle down, as if my career and independence meant nothing. Madison, influenced by our parents, used me as a comparison to make herself look better. If she was the desired one, I was the forgotten one. For years, I let their words slide. I shared important moments with them, but they always seemed to downplay my achievements. When I solved a major cyber crime case that was covered in the news, my mother sent a simple "well done" text and then went on to post about Madison's latest photoshoot. When I received an award for my work in cyber forensics, my father congratulated me briefly and then asked if I had met any suitable men at the event. I met my husband, Miles, 6 years ago at a cyber security conference in San Francisco. Miles was a software engineer who specialized in creating secure systems for government agencies. He was different from anyone I had ever met. He asked intelligent questions during my presentation, showing that he had really listened. Most people at these conferences were only interested in business deals, but Miles was genuinely interested in the impact our work had on society. After the conference, we started chatting. What was supposed to be a short conversation turned into hours of discussion about our work, our passions, and our lives. We quickly realized we had a deep connection. Miles wasn't judgmental. He didn't care about my age or relationship status. He listened to me and truly understood me. A year after we met, while we were on a weekend getaway in the mountains of Colorado, Miles proposed. It was a simple, intimate moment under the stars. He said he wanted a life with me, a life that didn't need the approval of others to be real. I didn't even let him finish asking before I said yes. 3 months later, we got married in a small, private ceremony in a forest lodge. Only our closest friends and family were there. Miles's parents, David and Linda, were overjoyed. My best friend, Ava, was in tears. I didn't invite my parents or Madison. I knew they would turn my wedding into a show, focusing on the details and not on the love between Miles and me. I wanted a peaceful, stress-free day, and I knew that wasn't possible with them around. Miles and I built a beautiful life together. We lived in a cozy apartment in downtown Los Angeles, filled with books and memories. We both loved our work, and we supported each other through the highs and lows. But keeping our marriage a secret from my family was taking a toll on me. Every time I went back to Miami for a family event, I had to put on a facade. I'd leave my wedding ring at home and answer awkward questions about my single life. The week before Madison's wedding, Miles could see how stressed I was. He asked me, "Are you going as yourself this time, or as the version they can tolerate?" I knew he was right, but I just wanted to get through the weekend. He kissed my forehead and said, "Peace that requires you to disappear is not peace." I carried those words with me as I walked into the wedding. By the time my mother made that cruel comment, I was exhausted from years of pretending. And so, I decided it was time to tell the truth. After I revealed my marriage, my mother tried to dismiss it as a joke. She said, "Erica, don't be ridiculous. This is not the time for one of your dramatic comments." I looked at her calmly and replied, "I think you made it dramatic when you used my sister's wedding to humiliate me." My father leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Enough. You are embarrassing this family." I almost laughed. His first concern was always the family's image, never my feelings. Madison stood up, looking frantic. "Erica, stop. Today is my wedding." I turned to her and said, "I know. I didn't come here to ruin it, but I also didn't come here to be your family's entertainment." My mother demanded to know where my husband was. I picked up my phone and said, "His name is Miles. He's a software engineer. We've been married for 5 years." I showed them real photos of our life together, photos of us on our honeymoon, Miles working late in his home office, and us celebrating our anniversary. My father was furious. "You got married without telling us? You let strangers attend while your own parents were left out?" I took the phone back and said, "They were not strangers. They were people who celebrated our love, not just our status." I then started to tell them about my work, about the cases I had solved and the impact I had made. They had no idea. My mother had always thought my job was just a hobby, and my father had never really given it much thought. I reminded them of all the times they had downplayed my achievements and focused on my single status. My mother accused me of revenge, but I told her, "I waited years for you to see me, to value me for who I am. You finally pushed me too far." As I spoke, I could see the realization dawn on their faces. Other guests in the ballroom were also listening, and I could tell they were starting to understand the truth. My mother tried to grab my wrist as I got up to leave, but I looked at her until she let go. I said, "We're done. For tonight, at least." As I walked out of the ballroom, my phone buzzed. It was Miles. "You okay?" he asked. I smiled for the first time that day and replied, "I am now." A video of the incident was posted online, and it spread like wildfire. People who had always seen my mother as a saint in the community now saw her cruel side. My mother tried to issue an apology, but it came off as insincere, only making things worse. My father started to lose some business deals as clients became aware of the incident. Madison was initially angry with me, accusing me of stealing the spotlight from her wedding. But a few days later, she sent me a message asking if I had planned it. I told her no, and she replied that it felt like we had all walked into a waiting truth. A week later, my mother posted a more sincere apology. She admitted that she had been more concerned about the family image than about me. My father also reached out, though he said he didn't know how to apologize properly. I told him to start by being honest. 3 months after the wedding, my parents asked if they could come to Los Angeles to meet Miles. Miles and I discussed it, and I decided to give them a chance, but with conditions. I wanted them to respect our life and not try to turn it into a show. When they arrived, my mother brought a bouquet of flowers, her hands shaking. My father looked older and more tired. Miles welcomed them with open arms, showing them our home. During dinner, my father set down his fork and said, "I owe you an apology. I thought I was joking at the wedding, but I was hurting you. I'm sorry." My mother started to cry and said, "I wanted people to think I had a perfect family, but I lost sight of you." She also apologized to Miles for making me hide him. Miles gently explained to her that I had hidden our relationship because I was afraid my joy wouldn't be safe with them. My mother nodded, understanding for the first time. After dinner, they asked about our wedding. I showed them some photos, and my mother cried quietly. My father said, "You looked happy." I replied, "I was." Madison also reached out, saying she was sorry for using me as a comparison. She wanted to learn how to be a real sister. I told her we could start with honesty. My relationship with my parents is different now. It's smaller, but more truthful. I've learned that real love is not about performance or approval. It's about respect and being able to share your true self. I'm still healing, but I'm also stronger, and I'm grateful for the life I've built with Miles. If you've ever had to hide your happiness because of your family's expectations, I hope my story gives you the courage to be yourself. After all, you were never meant to shrink so others could feel big.